Hello, my fellow Argonauts. This is the Aquarium medium. Happy full moon in Capricorn. Here is the full moon in Capricorn chart on the left, and the United States chart is on the right. It's it's in full force, and we need to take responsibility for our home, for our actions, for our behavior, for our spiritual temple that is not on the outside. And what we're going to be seeing today and the days going forward is volcanism, earthquakes, happenings on the sun, emotional material insecurities rising up. We're going to see explosions that are going to be in the public eye. We're going to see an explosion of health. We're going to see God's will is certainly being done. We're going to see how the last 400 or 500 years with the Baconian King James philosophy is a burden on our health. God's will is being done through King James, through Francis Bacon, through the United States to bring about a rebirth, a reset. And it is with this rebirth and reset that I want to show you that these insecurities, these emotional insecurities, is with Venus in this Capricorn full moon going forward chart. It is with the 1450, this midheaven. It is with the Apollo is shining the light on the health. It is with this 1318 that is coming to us with the ascendant and the descendant. It is shining a light on the sun of the United States with its partnerships at home. It's shining a light on Trans Pluto, which is Persephone in the underworld and how she likes to go into the underworld. This magnetic field goes back to King James, and this head wound is just a constant wound. And this revolutionary spirit is what we are seeing with Venus. It is also what we see with the Christ chart. This 2704 brings wisdom to those who have built their inner temple with God, with the Christ consciousness. And this 220 of God's will being done with King James is from his mother, this queen, these intuitive forces that came to him at home were critical. And it really took him on a ride, a mental ride, because with Vulcan, God's will was being done through his intellect, through his writings, and these dissolving of his mental faculties. It also showed where his values were. His values were with the love of the earth, with God in the mental realm, with writing, and his mother grounding him and keeping the flame burning at home within the government and the power of the government at home. And this burden, this magnetic field that the United States constantly renews, is the health of burden on King James, because this magnetic field, Apollo was shining the light about the death, the rebirth and regeneration that the United States is constantly renewing. This renewal brings them joy, and this joy of presenting our health in a public way brings a darkness with God about our health. And this darkness about our health is because they are not keeping it in balance. They're constantly regenerating it. And this wisdom of God with King James, it was a burden. And it was also a means of a Rosicrucian theme that we have here in the United States, that it keeps going and going with this flame of Francis Bacon and the way that he experimented with his intuition, his intense experiences, and the way that his burden, he was just constantly burdened by this health and experimenting with our health, and the way that he was shining the light on the government in the house of God and in the mystical experiences with hospitals and prisons, and the way that the future health with the communications, and how he was able to deliver such a manuscript called the Holy Bible with King James was definitely a part of the story that Apollo wants to shine the light on. And it's what we are continuously living through today. But this volcanic eruption, these explosives that are happening today, is what we are going to see with the sun, with the higher octave of Persephone, as we go into a deeper, darker hell for a few days, and this warring energy that is at home with God, the way that he is descending with this 1450 is with the government, and he is descending at home because the Capricorn, the Saturn energy, this Satan who has the power of the air, is in opposition of his home, of his partnerships, of his public identity. And this public identity is what he was wanting to dissolve and show that we can heal one another, and that through faith and through mind over matter, we are able to initiate this shakeup with our head, with the hypothalamus, with this thrice great, the rivers of the Jordan. You know, we are able to really come into the mysteries that are not so mysterious when it comes down to understanding who Jesus was, what he was about, how he lived to be age 30, and how he was crucified by the Saturn energy at home. When the Saturn returned, he was in opposition at home. And this opposition is what King James could intuitively understand. And he was able to intuitively understand that they needed to break away from the dogma and become independent. And the way that they became independent, Apollo is shining the light for us and showing that this independence, this Jupiter teacher of God, of the underdog, and this shakeup that happened with our health with God is being shown through Apollo, that the hell and this magnetic field of our head is where the United States is continuously bringing darkness to our health, to our immune system, and they really need to let go. And the only way that they're going to let go is if they're forced to let go with this balance, with the law, the spiritual law of the ego that has to be dissolved. Their ego is not able to sustain going into the future. They know this. They know that there is a reset that has to take place because they need a new will. They need to die. They need to go into the underworld, rip the magnetic field from King James, really get into the root cause of this head wound. And the key to healing is through Chiron. That's the reason why they all sent their kids to Chiron. It's because this is the key to the higher Christ consciousness at home. And this reset is going to come with Pluto. These values, they are constantly desiring. They desire and they devour this Taurus earth, the earth's resources. And we've been here before. Francis Bacon knew we had been here before, and his visions of the future, of the hell, of Persephone, of this divine wheel, is where we really need to go deeper with Francis Bacon. We need to go deeper with Francis Bacon, and we need to take responsibility. We need to take responsibility for our health. We do not have to be an experimentation anymore. We have to take responsibility at home. We've got to take responsibility for our actions, because Venus is not only the same degree with this full moon in Capricorn, she's not only the same degree as the United States first house of Selena with Sagittarius, but she is also the wisdom of God, the wisdom of the Christ consciousness. You see, this Christ consciousness brings us wisdom in the future. This is what he foresaw. This is what his burden was. And this is the reason why God's will, when Trans Pluto gets to 220, we are really going to feel God. We are going to feel King James rise up with this magnetic burden that is continuous, because this burden of the United States magnetic field of health is not going into the future with us, because Selena wants to go across the skies, and she wants to go into space, and she wants to come into our veins, and she wants to expand this travel without bounds. There's no boundaries. There's no spiritual boundaries here. And because there are no spiritual boundaries, we are going to be forced off the merry-go-round. And it is God's will. King James and Francis Bacon definitely have put layers and layers of truth. And the Rosicrucian theme of hiding and building is not going with us into the future. It cannot go with us into the future, because the stone builder is in the hypothalamus. It is our hormones, and these hormones are being affected by their need for regeneration of our health and experimenting with our health. And the bovine material that is in vaccines, that is in our food, is definitely messing with our solar system, the immune system. The solar system is within. Our immune system is within, and we are connected to all that there is. So this Capricorn full moon is showing that there are going to be volcanic eruptions. There's going to be warring that's going to be in the public eye. There's going to be explosions. There is going to be things that are going to come into our awareness that will be troubling. And this is the weight, the emotional devouring weight. And this Cancer energy is really wanting us to go higher into the power of the mind and release the trickster. Understand that the rock is in our brain. The rock is our controller that needs to be guarded. And we guard it with the flaming sword. Vesta right now is in Virgo, and she is at a 2021. It will not be long before Vesta reaches the Juno degree of the United States natal chart. And this balance of Saturn will be critical. The health, the relationships with the United States are dissolving because of this critical health factor that we have. And their relationships are critical. They are to dissolve the darkness. And when they dissolve the darkness, the burden of health is the government. It is the governing bodies and how they are controlling and manipulating our cranial nerves, our nervous system, our circulatory system, our magnetic blood. This magnetic blood that we have is electrifying, and it is being manipulated by them, by the sun, by our environment, and we are having a time, because the cytokine storm is changing the proteins, the antibodies. It is changing how we as a species will evolve with the changing environment. So their need to control, fix, and manage our health, our lives, is only because we allow it. We are soon going to be forced off the merry-go-round with a reset. We are really being called on with this Capricorn full moon to take responsibility at home, to take responsibility for our own health, take the responsibility for our core wounds, and understand that there is a bigger force that is within you that has a lot of power. And this power is a natural type of power that can never be taken away. There is nothing that is going to happen that is not meant to happen, because unfortunately we have to be forced to change. Sometimes we just have to be forced. And this receptive moon of Cancer, this quality of the receptivity of the moon, is where our sun is shining. It is shining on us at home. And it is requiring us to not just be receptive, but really go back to the root of our DNA. It controls the stomach, the breast, the digestion. It works together with the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the pineal. Our body works together with the solar system that is found on the inside. It's just a mirror found on the outside. As Jupiter comes closer to the Christ's Vesta, we are going to feel it. We are going to feel, and we may not understand really why we are feeling such a connection to the higher state of consciousness, but it's because this is what is within us. All of these energies, when they touch, they are prominent, they are forceful, they are magnificent, they are magical, and they want to commune, to be at one. They want to show you, these energies want to show you a higher perspective. What is really going on is a hell on earth, and we can heal ourselves easily by believing that we can. When we follow the red letters, when we follow and understand the Christ and what he did in the infancy of the Gospel of Thomas, you know, anything that we can find when we're seeking to know Christ, we have to seek to know all of what has been written and understood about Christ, not just the King James and Francis Bacon version, because the only way that they understood the Holy Bible and was able to really construct it in such a way is that they had to understand the pagan, the Greek, the Hindu. They had to understand the Vedas. They had to understand the Gospel of Thomas. They had to understand what Sophia really meant, what it really was within us that encompasses such majesty, such a wellness of being that can come into this magnetic flux and survive and be able to be at one with one another, and to be able to intuitively understand what is going on with our body and this blood, the way that we are understanding the bovine material in the vaccines, the way that we are understanding how mankind has dominated nature rather than cooperating with it. Everything that we have done and that we have created the last 2,000 years are going away from the way with spiritual principles, with the law, of the land. And we can understand as the energies make their way the rest of the year, we are going to see everything coming to a head where the volcanism, where the cooling of the planet, all of this is because we have dominated nature. We have been given dominion not to dominate, but to have the intelligence to cooperate. And when we detach from these broken systems and we come together as a people and we rise up with our power without aggression, we will see the face of God and we will have a heaven on earth, because there's going to be a lot of changes and a lot of changes have to take place. And the first change that's going to take place is with our environment, with our blood, with the Argo, the ship that we came in here with is tainted. It's been obstructed. We have not kept the flame guarded. We have let our guard down. We have participated way too much in the world, trying to obtain stuff that we will not take with us. We have tried to obtain ownership of land that we will not take with us. We have tried to reach into deep space by building wealth off of ill health. There's a lot we have to undo. And King James, Francis Bacon, we all have the undoing to do. And the one aspect that Jesus came here to undo was Sedna. And I will be doing a video about Sedna, really going into depth about what this really means for humanity. So happy full moon. I wish I could bring you a greater forecast, but the only great thing is that none of this is really going to matter when we are not in the state of matter, and that we can meditate, we can do breathing exercises, we can get out into nature, we can ground, we can take one moment at a time and just really rejoice in the fact that every now moment is such a gift that we can use it to bestow goodness and love and kindness on one another. We can show each other the light and the shadow of ourselves, but we cannot force anything onto anyone, especially when we are not willing to really look at ourselves in the rawness of who we are as an individual and as a collective. We really need to take responsibility for the world that we've created. And we have been a part of this world, and we are here now to undo those things which need to be undone. All right. So until next time, peace out.